All right, I think we are live. Welcome, Red. You are joining me from your studio. I'm joining you also kind of from my studio, but this is more my ritual space. So, thank you so much for joining me. This is a soul connection call where we just have a kind of open conversation around a initial thematic topic to just give us a springboard, and then we just kind of go with what is. So if you're joining us live, feel free to let us know, or if you're joining us for the replay. But Red, would you be willing to go ahead and just introduce yourself so that people can orient to who the heck you are?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Red. I am a psychic catalyst. I'm an energy healer. I am a certified astrologer. I'm a certified health and life coach. I have a background in diversified learning styles and education. That is what I specialized in. I also teach in the metaphysical community. I actually taught in the metaphysical community for decades. And in 2012, I kind of stuck my head in the sand. I had a kind of a both a health crisis and a social community crisis. I was like, I am done with this. People aren't being authentic. The world's not ready for me. I'm just gonna go hide. And I did. I hid. I completely disappeared. And in 2017, I started to kind of stick my head out of the sand, going, "Is
Is
it?
it
Is it?
time?
Is it okay?" And it wasn't time, but I kind of slowly kind of came back out of the hidden, warm, comfortable home place, and in the emergence of the dark time, which everybody else calls the COVID event, um, it was time. It was 100% time, and I had a little bit of a false start, but I'm out of the gate and running now, and I find that there's these interesting conversations about where have you been? I went, oh, I've been here the whole time. Y'all just weren't aware. Like, I swear, I was here the entire time. So that's a little bit about me. I do a lot of things.
You're
Um,
multi-passionate like me.
I am. I also have a not metaphysical, completely on the crafty side. I have a YouTube channel where I sew stuff and hopefully inspire people to sew stuff. And yeah, I'm really quite multifaceted. I've had a very rich background to bring me to the place where I can be where I am now to do the work.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I love that. And bringing in the facets of that lived experience to say, like, I went through these different times of metamorphosis and was able to emerge on the other side of it because I allowed myself the space and time to do that. So
mm-hmm.
important.
Oh yeah,
I mean, I see massively just in, I know you and I could very easily soapbox down the ethical line very easily in like a hot
very
second. But there's so much lack of ethics in just how many people are out there doing work and coaching
mm-hmm.
and therapy, even that aren't doing the work themselves. And so they're just kind of perpetuating this harm. And that ownership of it's not quite time for me to emerge in this way. I'm going to do my own stuff while everyone else is doing their own stuff, and then when I'm ready to come back out, people are going to receive me in a different way, and that's so
100%.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I named this episode Natural Numbers, Mythology, and More because I knew we were going to go all over the place. But you and I met through Body of Nine,
Mm-hmm.
and you have been a very interesting case in the Body of Nine community in that you do have such a level of mastery of energy and physical expression of energy at this point that it was hard for them to identify a natural number initially. Right, whichever one was online when you came out of the womb, right? Obviously they're all there, right? Still kind of up in the air, but like what I would love to hear your description of the natural number work because I've been hearing from Susan and Martin that you're doing such a great job like expressing it to people, and I'm still trying to figure out how to express this to people.
So I come at it obviously from, as we have discovered through many discussions with Martin and Susan, I'm going to back up to go forward. So walking into the very first identification event that I wandered into, completely oblivious, I had followed an ad that somebody had posted. Jack Schwen, who's also part of the partner community, he's absolutely delightful.
He is. I love him.
When I met him at a tarot group, tarot with Tuesdays Tea and Tarot, I think is what it was, or something. He sat down next to me and I went, I know you. I'm not allowed to go there right now. You know, like, okay, hold the psychic red into the bubble. Let's just enjoy tea with tarot. But he had posted this thing about come to this thing. And I went, well, if Jack's inviting me, I'm going to go, because I was still like, well, I still am with Jack. Like, I know that there's this thing. And he's got a beautiful, delightful fiance. They're getting married soon. I'm so excited for them.
They're a 2 and 9 pair, like me and my boyfriend.
It's so delightful. Anyway, so tangent. I almost didn't go. My husband that morning, we usually spend our Saturdays and Sundays together because he works like 60 hours a week. And he's so supportive of my business that I really wanted to spend time with him. And I told him, I said, I'm not going to go. He goes, you need to go. And I was like, but I want to stay at home with you. And he goes, well, you're going to regret it if you don't go. You've done this before. Go. You said you want to build your business. If community is what you need, then go get them. And I went, okay, I'm going to go. So I wandered into that, really not knowing what I was doing, why I was there, what was going to happen. And I did. I sat there for about 30 minutes trying to figure out what the hell they were talking about. What's going on? What is body numbers? Like, I'm not big into numerology other than maybe when it has to do with astrology. And I did do that deep dive into quantum numerology about 20 years ago when it was not fad.
Right.
I will say. And so they identified somebody in front of me. And when they identified them, I could see the cascading energy of activation. I could see it. I could feel it, and I could feel it in my body. And I went, there is something here. And in that moment, I knew that was the piece I was missing. I have worked in the metaphysical community. Like, I mean, I was doing things as a junior in high school, you know, like in junior high. Right. I was involved in, I mean, I grew up in an environment where nobody shut me down until I was like 5 or 6 years old. So I never really had, until I was a little bit older, that not everybody could see or perceive or know the way I did. I kind of thought everybody did. And maybe they were just pretending, because that's what it felt like. It felt like the people around me were pretending to live life. And I didn't understand that. And so the body of 9 language is the language that I have been missing for decades. So when I found it, there was no holding me back. I was like, yes, please identify me. I want to know what this is. So their very first identification of me, they were like, you're a 2. And I went, okay, I'll be a 2. This is wonderful. And I sat down. I was so excited. I don't know what that means, but I'm so excited. And then they identified somebody else. And I went, wait a minute. And then they identified somebody else. And I went, wait a minute. I have questions. And, you know, they do the discussion at the end after they identify people in a workshop. And I knew it was really important for me to put my teacher hat and myself into this little bubble over here and be very careful how I ask my questions. And so I intentionally set all of my knowledge to the side, and I let myself in that moment be completely 100%. I need you to explain why the words you gave this other person resonate with me. Mm-hmm. And there was the no. And I went, no, let me explain. You know, like, this is how I see my world. And they were like, okay, we'll re-identify you. And so I got back up on the mat, and they tried everything. They did 7, they did 8, I think. I think they did 1. I think they did 6. They did 9. I think they went back to 4, and then they did 5. Like, They were all over the place. And I could not resonate with all of them energetically. So
Right.
I created a bit of a conundrum, and they invited me back. And over the last 6 months, I guess, it's been this discovery of, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this. And the other side of it is that once I found the words, my teaching, I felt it. I felt it in my body, ironically. Ironically, I felt all of that information. The more I learned, the more it came into my body. I read their book in the first 24 hours after that first workshop. And then I read it 2 more times before the end of the week. Like I've read it and read it and read it and highlighted it and written all over the margins. And I had a blueprint session that week with a new client. And I'm in the session, and I randomly said, "Do you happen to know your natural number?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, my natural number is whatever it was." And I went, ding, 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 ding. And it was as though the blueprint patterning that I've been following, there's always been a physicality component that I'd send people to a yoga instructor, or to Tai Chi or Qigong or a naturopath. Like, here, go to all these other body people. I don't know what the hell's going on with you, but I know it's energetically connected.
Right.
But I didn't have the words to anchor it. And I did that blueprint download with that person, and I felt 100% the rightness that this is the missing piece. This is the missing piece for every blueprint. This is the missing piece for every psychic reading, every tarot reading, every astrology reading. I think the irony is that I had not heard about human design, or apparently it's been around for a while, right?
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
I started a manuscript in 2001, and I called it Discovering Who You Are, or The Discovery of You, or I had a couple different titles. And it was about the integration of astrology and human psychology and numerology and all these methodologies. But I stopped writing my manuscript because I was missing the body component. That's why human design does not settle into people fully. They can only get to a certain point because they don't have the integration into the physicality.
Right. That makes so much sense.
There's a huge paradigm shift with Body of Nine. It can be integrated into all these pieces. And I like to tell Susan all the time, she's a pathfinder. It's not that this information hasn't been available. It's just been kind of lost through time.
Yes.
And I know that my experience as a very young child, I know that the medicine of Body of Nine was part of what was given to me by my family member who raised me. It was a different language, it was a different knowing. Didn't call it Body of Nine, but there was an integration energy piece that I was taught at a very young age, which I believe also causes a little bit of the conundrum of now why they can't identify me, because I integrated really, really young somehow. And that's created this disconnect. Like, we're kind of settling that I might be a 4, maybe, but
my favorite theory for you is 4 or 9. That's my favorite theory for you.
I think that's the most popular theory that's going around. Susan doesn't think it's 9, but I also have a physical condition that makes 9 very difficult. I can get into 9, but I will tell you, all weekend long, I'd go into 9, and as soon as I'd settle there, I'd go, oh, that feels so good. And then I slide into 4. But I slide from 4 back into 9 all the time.
Right.
There's a relationship with that numerology connection anyway. So
yes. Yeah, and I love that you kind of came into the Body of Nine community and you were this conundrum. Like, that was something that was needed to like revitalize the practice of how we look at it, and the fact that we do need to go to the younger components, maybe look at some childhood photos. Yeah, I mean, I 4 is my favorite theory for which one was online for you, because just your facial structure and the way that I relate to you is very similar to how I've related to other 4s and their facial structure. Just the way you smile and the way that your energy feels. Like, as a collective energy. Like the flavor of that energy comes across very forward to me. But, you know, that's the thing, like with the fundamentals workshops, going and learning to embody the numbers. The natural number is definitely important if you are completely disconnected from your nature.
Yes.
If you're very in your nature and you just don't have the words for it, right? Like finding your natural number might just be like, oh, I already knew that about myself, and you roll on.
Right.
But then the getting all the other ones in your body is like, I'm really trying to convince my natural number 2 partner to come with me to a fundamentals to get them in his body, because it is so eye-opening when you feel like you were just saying, like this able to cascade between 9 and 4, the superpowers that you access there, the abilities, the perspectives that you access in these different physiological states, physio-spiritual states, just expands your ability to experience this human life and the divine cosmic source-filled life in such a more expansive way. So again, like, yes, you're an enigma, and if people are coming in listening and this is their first time hearing about Body of Nine, they might be like, well, this doesn't sound very accurate if they had trouble identifying this person. I think that like it's what, like 1 in 90 people or so that they like kind of are on the fence about, and usually it's between 2 numbers. It's just that you happen to be the first person on their mat with this like entirely different level of energy mastery.
Yeah. And we talked about it this weekend. Like, it was pretty powerful so they tested me because I'm part of the practicing partner program. So I'm training to identify and eventually to teach this because it's so important. It's a paradigm that's, again, just lost information. And because of my background, I know that the medicine that I was given as a child has been lost within the culture that it was given to me from my ancestry. So
Right.
I know that it's valuable no matter where you come from in the world. I know it matters no matter what your ethnicity. I know that it matters no matter it just matters. And my use of that energy and that use of that power within my body has been a double-edged sword, right? Because
Right.
I know what the energy can do. So I have spent my entire life forcing my body to do the things I want it to do. And that has not been very kind on my physical organism.
Right. Yeah, that's a thing. Come
Oops.
on, sir, don't dawdle. My cat's like, do I want to come join the party or not? My natural number 2 cat. We have
Oh.
been typing our animals.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fun practice. And this guy's a 2. So he, of course, wants eye contact, and he wants to be like up in whatever I'm doing whenever I need to do something.
Oh, yeah.
Only when I'm doing something important.
It took me probably about 3 weeks after I went to my first workshop to realize that my cat Astra is probably a 4.
Aw. Come on, my dude. So, you know, this is this missing component that's being reignited, and that's something that I really like. I'm still trying to figure out how to word for people. Is Yeah, Susan and Martin didn't invent this. It's not a gimmick. It's not just a framework that they happened to come up with one day and be like, we're going to repackage the Enneagram.
Nope.
No, like
No.
this goes way back, and so you have some knowledge of some of the ancient components.
There's 2 sides of this, interestingly enough, that I am working my way into trying to explain. So I'll try here, and if it doesn't make any sense, I'll
This
try
is where we play, because this is low stakes.
right. So my theory, or my I don't know how to start that, but the medicine that comes from activation in the body is because I talk about medicine in a multi-dimensional healing method, just like my ancestors did. So there's a component of being aware of your human body's connection to Mother Earth. You are integrally connected to her. You have been gifted a human organism to wear. You're wearing a meat suit, okay? And that meat suit is a gift. It is your temple. And the medicine that comes integral into that human organism is the activation of your body, the energy activation of your body. That is the first gift. The second gift is that you can choose. You can always choose to activate or not. The third gift is to be activating the potential of the full human organism to be integrally connected with awareness into Mother Earth's consciousness. We live within her ecosystem, hence, we live within her consciousness. And we are not the only planet entity combo in the universe, but this is the one we're at. This is where we're at.
The one we're at.
and the I remember being told at a very young age that you take care of your body not for being afraid of dying. You take care of your body and you're aware of the energy connection in your physical body so that you can be of service to your fellow brothers and sisters living within this ecosystem. And that is a gift we give each other to work on karma or whatever it is that we're here to do.
Right.
And we lost that. We just lost it over time.
We've lost so much over time.
But it's not gone. It's always been here. That's the part I get so excited about, is it's not new. It's not gone. It was just lost through time, space, death, catastrophes, cataclysms,
right.
all the things that have happened.
Yeah.
And this is very much the missing piece. And I get very enthusiastic about it. And a friend of mine tells me, she's like, okay, Red, you sound a little bit like you swallowed the purple Kool-Aid and following a cult. And I'm like, if I sound like that, it's because I'm really passionate and enthusiastic about it. But I get that way about things that matter.
Yes.
I don't care about I don't care about a lot of things. They don't matter to me as much. They matter to other people, and I can acknowledge that, but I don't hold it in my sphere because that's not my purpose. And that's the other piece, is that I know that my purpose, my whole life, I'm not here for me. I've never been here for me. I'm not here to work on stuff that a lot of people are here to work on. I am here to help other people work on their stuff and make sure they have the tools to be successful and to shine bright and to live fully and make choices with understanding and compassion and
that
joy,
authentic
and love.
Alignment.
Yes. There's so much. I get very excited about it. So
I do too. Which is why I was like, we need to just have a talk live, even though I'm going to choke on my water. What you were saying about this being all these gifts, we're going to have to pull the transcript of this for Susan and Martin for the record, so we can just make a blog about everything that you just said, because it was beautiful. And it is so exciting. This is right there. It's literally right there. And if people want to take it, all they have to do is reach out and get it, to the extent where, Susan and Martin, this is a fun story to share, because you just mentioned the whole, your friends are like, are you in a cult? Like, this is what's going on here. Because Ikenna and I had a similar situation come up with someone who was like, I can't be in your life anymore because you've entered this cult. And we were very confused, first of all, because we have no idea where they got this information. They didn't ask us for clarification. They asked us for no information. They just said, you're in a cult, goodbye. So there's not really any healing potential there. But anyway, Susan and Martin are so passionate about bringing this information to people that they've literally told me, like, if there's someone who literally cannot pay for this information, we will do it free of charge. And they have very affordable options for people to be able to invest in this. So it's definitely like, it's accessible to all levels, but it's here. Do you want to reach out and take it? And then once you have even that initial information, like, okay, so your natural number, or these exist, where do you go from there? And then there's tons of resources, right? There's the book. There's tons of YouTube videos. There's Pinterest. There's like lots of ways people can continue to engage with this information. So we're not trying to like sign you up to be a member of a cult and pay monthly or like sign up for a membership or anything like that. This is life altering information. It saved, I think it saved my relationships. It improved my relationship with my sister and our communication because she's a natural number 8. And oh, I really recognize how I've spooked her, or been inconsistent. And like, I didn't even know where to begin having those conversations. I think that that's something that's so important to really like get across to people is, yeah, human design, astrology, you need to know so many words to begin to understand them, right? I just figured out my ascendant sign like a year ago, literally a year ago, because I didn't know my birth time, so I couldn't figure it out. So I ordered a birth certificate and got into that, and I ordered a human design report, and like there's so much in there to deep dive and try and understand. Body of 9 is like it raises immediate questions you didn't know to ask.
Right, but there's another piece. And this is the part that I've struggled trying to explain to people for decades. Your blueprint is written by you, and not everybody's blueprint actually connects into an astrology chart. There are blueprints that the astrology chart it's just this, if you have it done, it never really truly makes sense. And it has nothing to do with your birth time. It has nothing to do with anything the astrologer did wrong. It's because your blueprint and your astrology chart are not part of the same thing. The astrology chart is a happenstance. But there are people where the astrology is integrally written into the blueprint. Usually there's a karmic thing involved in that. I will use myself as an example. I've had my astrology chart done by world renowned professional astrologers, psychics, and astrologers. And they all look at my astrology chart and they call me up, or we do video chats or whatever. And this was years ago before the video chat thing. And they would call me up on the phone and they would go, "Are you sure you have your time right? Are you sure you were born there?" Like, because they can pick up on it. They can pick up that I am not connected to an astrology chart. That's how I became a certified astrologer, is because I figured if I learned how to do it, I could figure it out.
Right.
But human design, I mean, as soon as it was mentioned to me, I bought the book, I read through it, and I went, oh, I feel like this is like my manuscript from years ago. Interesting. That's why I abandoned it. It doesn't fit everybody's blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, there is a very complex language that's built into that, which is why it doesn't fit every blueprint. Like there's an if, and, or what may be possible. Blueprints are different. It's different. And the natural number part of your blueprint is part of the invisible ink that I talk about in your blueprint. You write your blueprint, and then you have a relationship with Mother Earth when you come into a human organism. She gives you the best natural number to match to the blueprint goals you have. It is a gift from her. It is not a choice you have. It's one of the very few choices in our blueprints. Everything else is your choice. Your body is your gift from her to match the goals in your blueprint.
That's beautiful. That's a really beautiful way of looking at that.
It's a gift. It's a gift.
Yeah. And this gift, again, it's something that when you take this gift that is offered, you can go so much deeper with yourself and with others so profoundly quickly. Like, I learned my natural number. I'm wanting to say April. It was either March or April of last year. Here we are. I'm a practicing partner. I'm stepping into spiritual entrepreneurship. I'm hosting rituals because my superpower is literally holding space for other people. I'm stepping into the visionary CEO role, understanding why, as a natural number 9, trying to be the traditional boss was never going to work for me. Never, ever, ever going to work for me.
I think that is an amazing statement, because in my professional career, I have done teaching. I have owned my own business. I have worked for other businesses. I have stepped into so many times a managerial operations role where I have made those businesses millions, literally made them millions. And every time I've stepped into that role, the reason I was able to make those businesses millions has to do with building community and has to do with being able to harness the energy of each of the individual people in that room, whether they realize that's what I was doing or not,
Right.
and holding space for their power. So giving every employee the ability to hold their power and hold their truth so they could fly with it.
Right.
And every time that I stepped away from a business, it was always the right time. It was just, this is the time to leave. And sometimes I had to grieve. Well, I did a lot of pre-grieving. That's a 5 thing. I have that too.
I sometimes pre-grieve.
Yeah.
I do, yeah.
There's a pre-grieving process. I always knew months before I would leave a position because I had to pre-grieve to be able to leave.
I mean, that's where I've been with my therapy business, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, that totally tracks.
Yeah. So I bring things into the Body of Nine community in ways that, because of the integration of all the energy over time, my whole life has been that way. I mean, I can look at a chunk of my teenage years where if you had identified me probably in that time, I would have been a natural number 7. It's like a case by case, written in the book, blow by blow example of that chunk of time in my life.
That's fascinating. I definitely moonlighted as a 7 for the record too. And that's a thing we can do, right? Slip into a familiar number of someone else, and we're out of alignment potentially with ourselves.
Yeah. I do that a lot, and I'm bringing that forward with also this energy aspect of being able to take the integration of those natural numbers energetically and stacking them for different situations. I've been talking about stacking since I figured out what the natural numbers were, because I've known that I do that for a long time. I just didn't have the Body of Nine language to go with it.
Right.
And there's a gestalt, for lack of a better description. There's a gestalt that happens when you stack those numbers. So if you intentionally pull on 2 energetic numbers through your body's organism into that space, it creates a gestalt. Now, how much of that is because I'm a catalyst too? That's one of my life themes in my blueprint. Took me years to figure that out because I wandered around creating these catalyzing in people's lives, and I would go, I'm so sorry, I don't know what happened.
Oh.
But once I figured it out, I'm okay with it. But going back to ethics, right? Like, once you're aware of something, you have a responsibility and an ethic to know what that means and be intentional with your energy and your space and your body and your power. And the Body of Nine activation gives you the access to the gift of your body from Mother Earth. Now, what do you do with that? And what is your responsibility in that awareness? And then as you add the activations of all the other numbers, what is your responsibility with all of those? And these are amazing things to apply to a work environment, to your business, to your personal relationships. My husband has no interest in getting identified. It makes me giggle. I love it because he's so supportive of everything that I do, and he's so very an amazing human being, but he doesn't want to be identified. And I think it's amazing because I can still honor all of who he is. I don't need to know that. And he knows that I don't need to know that, because I can honor him exactly who he is in that ethical principle of ownership and responsibility of my power.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean that just speaks to the fact that the most important thing we can do to make the world a better place, right, is being anchored in ourselves, whatever that means, right? And this is certainly information that can help us anchor into that. And when we're okay with that, when we're okay with us, then we're okay with everyone else too, like doing their own thing, whether they want to have this information or not. We can feel their authenticity because we can feel our authenticity. And that it's just a beautiful energetic exchange when we do the inner work. I just recently heard of the I have mixed feelings about law of attraction because I think that there are some missing elements to how people teach it, just with regards to like, it's not just all thought, it's thought and action. But
There's also a shame spiral that happens with that, so you have to be really
yeah.
careful.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is that I just heard of the concept of everything is you pushed out. And I think that there's some interesting stuff to look at there, but it points to the fact that the most important work, regardless, is that inner work, right?
Yeah.
Because it is absolutely true. If we're miserable with ourselves, we do start to push that out
Mhm.
at other people. And then we create those environments. So, yeah, I love the piece you said about like the ownership. When you have this gift and you have this awareness, you get to embody that, and you need, like, that's the ethical thing to do, is to embody it.
It really is. There's so much with how Body of Nine is the missing piece in so many things. I mean, just the therapy piece that you're a counselor now have that vocabulary, because that vocabulary, I mean, I'm not a counselor, but I have a counselor because I think everybody needs a counselor. That's my
I do too.
personal opinion.
I do too.
Um,
Yeah.
and my counselor and I've talked about Body of Nine quite a bit, and we get into these very five-ish, two-ish conversations about how Body of Nine. She bought the book on Amazon. She hasn't gotten identified, but she bought the book and she's like, you were 100% correct. This is the missing piece. Look at the power that this can be if the client knows the true perfection of their natural number and their body.
Right.
How does that, as a counselor, what is the power of that being able to help people in dialectical behavior therapy, in somatic therapy, in ETS, in, I mean, there's
Breath
so
work.
many therapy modalities, right? If you
So
have
many.
the if you have the power of being able to reflect back to someone their true perfect self, like that organism gift, there is nothing bad about any natural number.
Right.
Nature, your nature is perfect,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And
we
it's the
are
nurture that makes us think we're not.
correct.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's such a potentially uplifting thing for people to be able to tune into. And yeah, like, I'm also learning to identify, and though I'm stepping away from the therapy world for at least a while I go down this new path, like, even just having the Body of Nine framework, understanding eye contact and how it shows up differently, right? Um, Eyesight and how it shows up differently. The shame, disappointment, fear triad, right? Like, these things adds a depth of connection to, and layers of questioning that, obviously in therapy we talk about shame, disappointment, and fear, but to be able to talk about it in the nuanced way that Body of Nine begins to provide. And the practices for presence, I think, is one of Susan's books. I can't remember the
Yeah.
exact title. I can see it on my shelf, but I'm too blind from here. uh, but like, everyone, when you know your number, you can begin to become more present by using that blueprint, that physical blueprint, for what really starts to work for you. And then that allows you to eventually go in that layer deeper and start to stack in these other gifts. And it's so cool. I was thinking even about our human bodies, and the fact that there are different. there's different bodies in the world. There are some people that don't have all of their limbs. There are some people that don't have, the same facial features or the same hearing or sight or whatever abilities. But the natural numbers,
Are
pretty
still there.
much to be alive, you have to have those centers.
You have to have the gift, right, of the body. And that gift of the body gives you your natural number, period.
Yeah. And it's just, that was something that, because I'm a 9, I'm all about inclusivity. And I really want any framework that I'm looking at to include 100% of people. And there's
Oh,
plenty
yeah.
of things out there that don't. They just
Yeah.
don't account for, there's not the cross-cultural competency either. And this does have that.
Yes, it does. That's probably one of the underlying big pushes in my whole life has been this community aspect. Many years ago, I wrote a poem. I actually blogged about it because I wasn't sure if I should put it out into the universe. And I went, no, no, now is the time. Do it, do it, do it. It took a lot of bravery for me to do that, let me tell you. Because over the years, I have tentatively handed people a piece of paper with, I wrote this a couple years ago, see if it resonates. And then I would just kind of hide and see whether or not it would settle. And I put it out into the world. I put it out in a blog on my website. And I talk about that we are brothers and sisters on this journey. And now is the time to take off the illusion and be who you are, truthfully, wholly, all of who you are. And it's not a time for fear. It's not a time for resentment. It's not a time for war. It's a time for peace. It's a time for peace and joy and love and acceptance for who we all really are. And Body of 9 is physically anchored. It's not an illusion. It's not we're going to talk about world peace, blah, 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 this big spiritual whatever. I mean, we've been doing the spiritual work for decades, like all the light workers. They've all been doing the spirit work, what I call the woo-woo stuff out here, right? I get that. I 100% get that. In every single class I have taught for 30 plus years, any student will come back to you and say, Red talks about the woo-woo stuff, but every time she does, she asks you questions. Does it make sense? Is it anchored in here, in now? Is it anchored in your body? Is it anchored in truth that's applicable?
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's not anchored, it's just this woo-woo-y stuff. And then you have these people who talk about cults, they go off in left field, and you have these people that just follow blindly. They get lost in the illusion, right? The manipulation.
Right.
And I had somebody tell me a long time ago, it was actually my dad. He goes, the one thing I never have to worry about with you, Red, is worry whether or not you're going to become part of a cult. He's like, you ask too many questions and you want to know how it's real.
Yeah. Yes, me too. Me too. Like I was so skeptical with this Body of 9 thing, to be perfectly frank, right? It was part of a book I was writing. Like it was offered, get your natural number identified as part of our book. And we had the option to say no. There was an author or two who decided not to, and total respect there. But I was like, sure, I like archetype systems. And then the profound knowing, oh, this makes sudden sense why I experienced things the way I did as a kid, why I showed up how I did, why my parents didn't get me, right? Like that's one of my most fascinated things with this. And I don't know, I know we could talk for probably 6 hours on here. I would love for you to speak to the mythology piece or the literature piece, because we were starting to get into that with like Greco-Roman, Egyptian stuff a little bit in a side conversation. But, even just knowing this in this last year, despite the skepticism that initially was there, just getting curious and allowing it to be there and allowing it to integrate over time. Like I didn't rush right in. I was like, okay, let me take this and try it on. And then it was like, I can't unsee this. Once you've seen the proof, like once you've seen people be identified and you witness, oh, wow, that person's collarbone really was pointy. Like there really was a divot there in the body. Oh, wow, that person's ribs really do kind of jut out. Wow, there really is this flatness in this person's chest that's not present on it. Like you can see it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, massive understanding. And that was something Martin spoke to a while back, was that like ancient Egyptian statues would actually indicate someone's natural number in the way that they sculpted it. You could see that physiological difference. So I'm curious, do you know any of the other history or where this shows up?
Well, I haven't gone as deep because I did that research decades ago. So for me, it's kind of like trying to go backwards to go forward, but I've been kind of on the sideline when I'm not doing other things, which is not very often right now. But as I said, things are speeding up, right? We're post dark time. Things are really like those people that are supposed to be part of the work are getting busier, and I am so busy. But years ago, I actually was part of a women's group. We called ourselves the ISIS group, and interestingly, we had a book that there were 3 books we were kind of like, I can't remember the lady who wrote them. Well, one lady wrote 2 books, and then a different lady wrote another book, and it was about like ISIS magic and connecting in with Isis and this goddess type archetype, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that kept coming up in the group is the entire group was struggling with trying to figure out what they resonate with the Egyptian mythos, right? Mm-hmm. The hierarchy of the gods and goddesses. And we call them very much by their Greek names, I believe, if I'm right on that. But, and also the archetype of Isis herself and how far back she goes. And one of the things that I noticed in many of the imagery of Isis, Osiris, Sekhmet, Bastet, some of the different artworks, the actual temple paintings and sculptures and stuff, is that there is a positioning of the body. And I noticed that a long time ago, and I learned how to identify Isis in her different archetypes by how she's standing in the different drawings and sculptures and statues. And one of the things I noticed is it was actually kind of how I kind of dove into the goddess Inanna from Sumeria. I did a deep dive on her for like 2 years. I can't tell you how amazing that was. But I can visualize one of the most famous images that she has is that she is standing with her hands back like this, and she's holding an item, and she's got wings, and it is pulling her entire body back into the center of her back. And I remember knowing that somehow that particular stance would incorporate all of the things, right? All of the things that goddess brings forward into manifestation for people. Now, you translate that into body 9. What is that? That's the 9, right?
It's me. Was this Isis or Inanna, just for clarity?
It was Inanna. It's an image of Inanna. She's got.
That's really interesting. Inanna's been calling to me for like 2 months now.
Yes. Inanna. If you go back to Zoroastrian and some of the older stuff, if you go back to some of the Indian gods and goddesses, if you look at some of the really early artwork, they have different positions for different gods and goddesses. And one of the ones, I can't remember the name of the one, but it's also one that has this, I think, I wish I had the name. It's gone.
We're gonna be furiously Google searching after this talk.
Yes.
My brain's gonna be like, ooh, and this and this and this.
Yes. Anyway, there's one that's like this, but if you look at them, how the old drawings are, the information is there. The information about the activation of the body is there. There is, I mean, I grew up hearing about stories of so many cultures because my dad is a history buff, and like he came back from Peru, and I learned everything there was to know about Peruvian culture and their religion and their people. And of course, because he tells me about this, then I do a deep dive on South American Peruvian
Right.
culture. And
What else are you gonna do?
well, I know that for a long time I've been searching for the pieces, right? Um, the pieces that validate what I know but can't explain. And the mythology of all the cultures in the world, if you go back far enough, they will show you exactly what we're looking at in Body of Nine. They do show it to you.
Yeah.
Or the oral histories and the oral stories and the medicine that's passed down through the healers of those communities. The information is there. You just have to know what you're looking for.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to remember that, we put our human lens on it, right? Like we do the best with the information that we can.
Mhm.
Are the numbers the perfect number for each center? I don't know. You could probably mix them up and call it something else, at least but the way it's organized makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, the superpower, the ability that you access in that particular region of the body is really what's most important. And yeah, the evidence, no matter what label we put on it, no matter what it's been called, right? Natural number. Susan E. Martin used to call it natural energy, I believe. And this is information that's being revived all over the world, and we're going to put a human label on it, just like we do in any business, right? Any LLC. But the core of these 9 centers of leadership is universal, is what
That's
we're discovering.
actually something that I'm really passionate about. As Body of Nine starts to really grow and starts to really take off, um, I'm really, really passionate about keeping the integrity of the work, because the integrity of that work gives the foundation of truth. So as you add more to it, or it grows, it manifests and it grows, and this work is, yes, it's human body, but it's multidimensional because we're multidimensional beings, right? But we just happen to live in a human organism. But we're connected multidimensionally. So
Yep.
it's really, really important that if people want to learn it and want to know it, they follow the Body of Nine program that is really being developed. Like, this is still in its infancy of being brought forward to the world. Martin and Susan have done a phenomenal amount of work. And
20 plus years.
Susan's a pathfinder. She is not going to allow something to taint the medicine, which is something that's, if you translate that, that is, she's not going to allow the integrity of the work to get poisoned. And
Right.
that is hugely important for this work moving forward. So there is an element of, you should be able to afford to find out your natural number. You should be able to afford to buy the books. You should be able to afford to take some smaller trainings if you want to learn about the different numbers. There's so many different ways that the community that is bringing this forward so that we can identify more and more and more people, and then turn around and teach more and more people. That integrity has to be very much a part of the paradigm of those that are doing that.
Right.
And I'm a little bit hardcore on that, and I will admit that.
I think it's important. Integrity and ethics are so essential in building any big community, right? Because normally in human society, you get a group of more than 4 people and it all falls apart because we don't know how to communicate with one another. The really cool thing about Body of Nine is you can get at least 9 people together. And actually, when you have the 9 people of each natural number, the communication tends to be better
It
because you're
does.
holding all of the energy there of what we're capable of bringing to the table naturally. But it takes this willingness to show up as your natural self in front of people. And, that's something like if you're watching this talk or you have not been identified yet and you're interested, yeah, remember that there are multiple ways to engage with it, because there's just getting identified, and then that kind of plants a seed for yourself, and you can follow it and read books if you want and all that good stuff. But yeah, if you're like, I want to take it to the next level, that's where you step into a fundamentals workshop and you embody the other 9 numbers in your own body. And you might not get it on that first, 3-day experience, because it's actually shockingly hard to
It is.
activate some of the numbers. For
It
me, it
is.
was 2 and 1 initially, which are my partners for the record.
Well, there's another aspect to that. Like we've talked about, I'm kind of the odd duck because I've done so much energy work. But this is the second workshop I took this last weekend. My entire chest is so sore. I can't even tell you. My back actually feels the most relaxed and the best it's felt in months, probably years. Ironically, I couldn't get into 9 for the testing, but the the having the numbers in your body and really having your body resonate in your body with those numbers, depending on the work that you've done, can trigger a huge cascade of stuff. And that's why you can walk away from a fundamentals workshop and maybe only have embodied 2 or 3 of the different numbers. Maybe you don't get even close to all 9. But that doesn't matter. You're still growing, and that triggering aspect is important because it means you're integrating. Integration has come up in my daily devotions recently, like 3 or 4 times. It came up in dream sequences this weekend. It was pretty much the theme of all day Sunday.
Yep, it's been my theme this last week, though. Integration is what I do, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a thing. So, I mean, I know we kind of got on the tangent of body and mind, but there's just so much that ties into it, right? Like,
that's why I was like natural numbers, mythology, and more, because like there's so much to unpack with it, so much.
I mean, I I went into education. I got a teaching degree for 2 reasons. One, when I asked my grandpa if he would help me go to school to become a naturopath, he said, "That's not a real profession. You should just do something that has a regular, like, steady income." So there's that. He shut me down. And then I love my grandpa. He's passed now, but he did shut me down. And then the other reason I went into teaching is that I had already been teaching. So my thought was, I might as well get a piece of paper that proves that I know what I'm already doing. And I specialized in diversified learning styles because I was the student that really struggled in school with certain things. I don't learn the way everybody else does, as Body of Nine is also proving, right? Like, I don't learn the way that everybody else in class does. I don't process the way everybody else does. I I don't pick up on things the same way everybody else does. So I studied a method of teaching to get to as many students as possible. And I was a very successful teacher. Body of Nine, OMG. Can you imagine how impactful a teacher knowing not only about how the diversity of how people learn matched with your natural activation, that small child, that teenager that's struggling and the wheels are falling off their bus left and right, what is that child's natural activation and their natural learning style and their natural way of how they view the universe? Think of how amazing the education system could be if you took all the damn politics out of it and
That's
you
why I
just
love teaching.
taught.
That's why I love teaching. Yeah.
Just teach.
Like, I'm just imagining if I were back in the middle school setting again with a room full of kids that I knew their natural numbers. Who needs eye contact? Who needs physical space? Who wants me close?
Right?
And just naturally. And obviously, consent conversations are still important, but like it bypasses all the questions you don't know to ask
Mm-hmm.
so that you immediately know to check in.
Exactly.
It gives you, again, it gives you this vocabulary of, and again, not like human design or astrology where you need to learn new vocabulary. It's just
No.
using the vocabulary you already know as a human being
Yes.
reorient it and saying this is what this person's going to need in terms of eye contact, physical touch, potentially. Like it just. Okay, so is there anything else we want to say today? Because like I told you, we could talk for 6 hours,
We could.
nerd out. I love
We
it.
probably shouldn't, but yeah. This has been fun, Safriana. I really appreciate it. I could, you've said before, like you and I could probably delve into the depths of many subjects with all of these things, but probably don't want to bore everybody for that much longer on this.
We have had people drop in and out, so hopefully, I always trust when I'm live like this. Like these conversations are here for people to watch in the future, and if you're anything like me with my ADHD, I always play everything on like 1.5 to 1.75 speed. So half the time, I don't care to listen to a talk like this until the end. Hi, Martin. Martin says maybe do it again
Oh,
soon. Um, but yeah, like I always trust that people are dropping into the conversation live right when they need it, and even if you
yeah,
don't say anything, that they are still getting something super valuable about it. So thank you
always.
for having these open conversations. Yeah, I can't wait to meet you in person and be in your energy in person. But I love, part of being a natural number nine is, and a lot of the other numbers tell me they don't have this experience. I can feel so genuinely connected to people even at a distance
Oh, yeah.
online like this, and so this really fuels me and lights me up, and I love doing it. So thank you.
You're very welcome. I have the same thing. It took me a little bit to trust it. A couple years ago I had an experience that I went, "Oh, yeah, I totally can do that. Interesting."
The more we learn about ourselves, and again, anyone can do these things if they
Yes.
learn to embody the energies. So, all
Yep.
right. Thank you for those of you who tuned in. I can't wait to hop on the next one. I am going to be having another conversation like this on Friday this week with Kayla Gata, or Kayla Jetta. I always want to say Gata, it's Jetta. And she doesn't know much about natural numbers yet, but she's curious.
Ooh.
So who knows? Maybe we'll be talking about Body of Nine more. But thank you so much, Red. If you want to talk more with Red or me, we're here.
Mhm.
Reach out, right? And as always, let us know how we can serve you. So until next time, thank you.